loved it. I'll send you a copy. Bam! Bitch went down.
Welcome back to Horror Queers. We're talking Dark Castle. We're talking late 90s CGI. And we're talking Jeffrey Goddamn Rush. I'm Joe.
And I'm Trace. And we're talking Zinnia fucking Onatop. I mean, Famke fucking Janssen.
I'm glad you said her name first, because I was definitely going to mispronounce it, even though I love her.
I honestly don't know if that's how you pronounce it, but I've always said Famke Janssen. And I'm going to assume that's how you say it. If I'm wrong, listeners,
Now, don't correct us. Just let us live in this beautiful world. I think I say Famke Janssen, but that's just like a weird onomatopoeia kind of thing.
That's literally not even just San. There's an N before. Okay, whatever.
Janssen?
Janssen, yeah. Anyway, no, so we are discussing the 1999 remake of House on Haunted Hill. And why are we doing that, Joe?
Because we're celebrating its 20th anniversary. I feel like people haven't always caught on to the fact that we do a lot of milestone celebrations.
We don't do a good job of pointing it out. And I made a point on the cheat sheet today to be like, by the way, it's a 20th anniversary. But the 20th anniversary is actually next Tuesday, October 29th.
We try so hard.
I know. Well, we could have done it with next week's episode, which is technically the Halloween episode. And I didn't want to, this actually would have been a good fit for Halloween and the anniversary next week, but whatever. We're doing it this week.
And also, we have another anniversary pick coming up next week, but people gotta stay tuned to listen to what that is.
Yes, and it's a movie that I've never seen before, and it's one of my major blind spots. But we're not talking about that yet.
Teasy tease.
Yeah. No, we're not talking about that movie yet. You can hear our to be continued at the end of this episode. But until then, we have some shit to talk about with House on Haunted Hill. So, okay. This movie was released October 29th, 1999, and it was actually released 40 years after the original. So that makes this year also the 60th anniversary of the original Vincent Price film, House on Haunted Hill. I'm sorry, I guess William Castle film starring Vincent Price, House on Haunted Hill. But its anniversary was back in February, which is a weird release for a movie like that in 1959.
I don't know if they were as strategic with their release dates.
Probably not. I feel like, because with the 50s okay. So we'll talk about this, so I posted when I was watching the original House on Haunted Hill that is the first Vincent Price movie I've ever seen. Yes, I've seen parts of Edward Scissorhands. I am not.
I don't think I would count. Okay.
I mean, he's in it, but you know what I mean, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't have counted that. Like, that is not a starring vehicle for him. That's almost like a Golden Years cameo for him.
Yeah, and honestly, I saw parts of it. I think I've seen the whole movie, but in pieces. But I firmly decided that movie is not for me.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I like Tim Burton. I like Sleepy Hollow. I like Beetlejuice. Not a big fan of Edward Scissorhands. Sorry, keep listening to this podcast.
That's fair. I feel like... Yeah, Tim Burton is not for everyone, and particularly not anymore, because he makes a lot of bad shit movies, but...
he sold out.
I do get the impression, and maybe this is just because you and I know each other well, but I get the impression a lot of people who like us will probably also prefer Sleepy Hollow over something like Edward Scissorhands.
It's also because, yes, Sleepy Hollow has more of a horror bent to it, obviously, even though Edward Scissorhands does have some definite macabre and horrific elements.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't like that movie very much.
It doesn't have to be your jam. That's okay.
Yeah, that's it. What is my jam, though, is House on Haunted Hill.
Oh, right. We're still talking about this.
Both versions of it, though. No, I was actually a little surprised because when I posted I was watching this, only one person made a comment that was like, "You run a horror podcast?" And oh yeah, no, it was me. I mean, they said they were joking, but I was very much like, gatekeeper number one. And if you want to hear more about horror gatekeepers, you can join the Patreon because we have an episode on that, or minisode on that coming out next month. That's a spoiler, but whatever. Yeah. So I really enjoyed it, and here I'll finish the basics because I want to. This is going to go into the reception for this film, the remake.
Okay.
So this is released by Warner Brothers, produced by Dark Castle, which, and in case you don't know, listeners, Dark Castle Entertainment was basically a production company that started to do remakes of William Castle films. They did this one, and they did 13 Ghosts.
Mm-hmm.
And then they stopped.
Well, and then they started to go into some other ones, but also you're missing House of Wax, which is also a Vincent Price remake.
Right, but it's not a William Castle film.
No. Yeah. I think they were like, you know what, let's use this as a launch pad because, once again, they're doing name recognition. And I think they started to say, okay, well, we'll begin with a couple of recognizable titles. And then they said, well, let's not restrict ourselves strictly to William Castle films, and that's why we get Ghost Ship. That's why we get House of Wax. And
I think Ghost Ship came after 13 Ghosts. I think that was the third movie they did.
It is. I'm looking at the list right now.
Okay, and they of course started doing other things outside of horror, but your notable ones would be Ghost Ship, The Reaping, which is the Hilary Swank, Tim Plagues movie.
Will we say that's a notable one?
It's
really?
It's not good, but it's like it's Hilary Swank, you know?
Bitch, I'm looking at this list and I'm like, okay, here are the milestones. We've got House on Haunted Hill, 13 Ghosts, Ghost Ship, Gothica, which people often forget about, and it's actually pretty good. Mm-hmm. House of Wax. I'm not talking about The Reaping. I'm not talking about the sequel to this movie, although if you want to talk about that, we can.
It retcons some of this movie, and it really pisses me off.
Okay. And then that's all up to 2007. And then at that point, that's where they start to go into bad action movie territory, with the notable exceptions of 2009's Orphan, which we've already talked about, and I completely forgot was a Dark Castle film.
Yep.
As well as in 2009,
Splice. I was going to say, Splice. Honestly, Splice is the one that I forgot that they did.
Oh, I completely didn't even know.
I mean, it doesn't seem like a Dark Castle film, right?
No, not at all. And in case people don't know what Splice is, it's maybe because you're not a member of our Patreon, because I literally just gushed about this movie with you earlier
this month.
2 weeks ago?
Earlier this month, yeah.
Earlier this month in our episode on In the Tall Grass, because that is a Vincenzo Natali film, and he is the director of it, and he's Canadian. And then Splice is just a fucking badass, twisted AF little gem.
Yeah.
Love it.
But they haven't really done anything. Is there anything post Orphan that Dark Castle has done that's super notable?
I mean, in terms of horror,
yeah. Okay.
They've got a bunch of other terrible films. Like they released the George Clooney film Suburbicon from a couple years ago. But that movie is a piece of shit.
Isn't Julianne Moore in that?
Yeah, she is.
Okay, well that sucks.
It's a terrible film. I hate it.
Well, this was their first film, and
yes.
Started off with a bang, honestly. So we 93-minute runtime with a budget, and this is what was shocking to me: a budget of $37 million in 1999 for this horror movie. I guess they were. Granted, the cast. Well, now the cast is awesome. It's very recognizable. But I feel like we'll go down the cast list. But maybe at the time, I gotta say, I was very much why did Jeffrey Rush do this movie? Because before this, he had done Elizabeth, Shakespeare in Love, Les Miserables. Although he did do Mystery Man either this year, the same year as this, or the year before. So I was maybe he was I'm done with these prestige films. I'm gonna go do House on Haunted Hill.
Yeah, I think it's a good opportunity for him to stretch his comedic chops.
Oh, right.
Chops.
Because this is week 7 out of 8 of our camp marathon.
Look at you.
Yes, I remembered.
Well done. Also, as a point of note, just to quickly jump back to that budget, it was high, but then I was like, well, what's a comparable film? Anaconda was $45 million, and that was 2 years earlier.
Well, no, because I think the CGI budget for that movie, it was $100,000 for every second the CGI snake was on screen or something like that.
Well, how much do you think they spent on this Rorschach motherfucking ink cloud?
Okay, no. I will tell you right now, and we'll get into this fucking third act, or really the last 15 minutes of the movie later, but
yeah.
Apparently, so it was designed by KMB Effects and was inspired by the visuals of H.P. Lovecraft's novels, and of course the Rorschach ink plots. But here's the thing. According to Malone, the film's director, William Malone, so we got William Castle directing the original and William Malone directing the remake, much of the visual elements were actually not computer generated and were actually made up of footage shot by the production crew, which was grafted together to form the giant mass. And
that almost makes it more interesting, doesn't it?
Well, I don't want to say he's a bold-faced liar, but
but you don't trust him completely.
I don't know if I believe. Granted, I watched I was really mad because I did order the Scream Factory Blu-ray of this, but it was supposed to get delivered today, but it was delivered to my office building and they closed. So I watched my DVD of this last night, and that thing looks bad. But we'll get into it as we go on. But I think most of the budget went for that.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. That, and I'm sure the actual set design probably cost a lot too, because this house in quotation marks looks pretty fucking good.
Well, so what we'll discover, like, I'm sure we'll go into the other Dark Castle films maybe a bit, but Dark Castle as a production company is awesome because their production design and their sets, that's where their money goes. It doesn't go to the script.
Not often, no. But also, well, okay, so let's jump back to your list here, because some of the people who are attached to this film are both surprising and completely unsurprising.
Yeah, well, I mean, do you want to start with, like, director and work our way down, or do you want to...
Yeah.
Okay, so William Malone, I mean, he didn't really... The only notable thing before this that he'd done that I had seen was, or that I know of, was a movie called Creature from 1985. He does this, which I guess gives him some clout, and then he does Fear.com.
Yes, that was the one I wanted to discuss. Only to just be like, that movie is a piece of shit.
I've only seen it once, and in college, and I remember thinking it was really boring, and I think it killed Stephen Dorff's career for a while.
Oh, I mean, if Stephen Dorff himself didn't do it, then yeah, Fear.com probably did.
But if we're going into the script...
Yes.
We've got screenwriter Dick Beebe. Now, granted, he is dead. Rip, God rest his soul. He died in 2008. He is one of his only notable other like screenwriting credit is he is the co-writer of Book of Shadows, Blair Witch 2.
Now, you mind your tongue here. Be careful
you like
what
it,
you
don't
say
you?
next.
You like that movie, don't you?
I'm a Book of Shadows fan. I refuse to apologize for it. I think it is far riskier a film than it deserves to be, considering what it's trying to follow up. I don't think it's a good film, but I will praise it for taking risks. And if you want to see something that pales in comparison, take a look at that motherfucking other remake of Blair Witch, which is a literal retread and is super boring. And yes, I'm putting my gauntlet down. People come at me. I don't like the new Blair Witch. I will take the sequel over the new one.
I think most people agree with you. I like the 2016 Adam Wingard Blair Witch. Granted, I've only seen it once in theaters, and I remember really liking it quite a bit. I haven't rewatched it, and I really want to rewatch with the commentary, because the commentary, it's recorded with Wingard and Simon Barrett like right after the opening weekend, like when it basically flopped.
Right.
And all the reviews are really bad. Apparently the commentary is just them bitching the whole time, and I am really wanting to hear it.
Okay. Well, you know what? I would be down for that. But
yeah.
I was one of the people who panned that film. I got to see it at TIFF.
I gave it a 4 out of 5.
I think I gave it a 2.
Well, our editor, Brad Miska, I think gave it a 4.5, and he still gets shit to this day for referring to it as a game changer of the horror genre.
Yeah.
I feel so bad for him.
Remember that review.
he'll never live that review down, and I feel like people still comment, and like he'll write to me, and they'll be like, "Is it a game changer?"
Wow. The internet, shockingly, is still full of assholes.
Yeah, so Dick Beebe, this and Book of Shadows Blair Witch 2, he unfortunately died in 2008, really sucks. I mean, if anything, like whatever you can say about Blair Witch 2, it was at least ambitious.
Yes, yeah.
This one, less so, but I love his updates, and maybe we'll talk about that more in the plot summary if we ever get to it, but this remake does what I feel, and what we've discussed before about remakes, is that it takes the bones, the skeleton of the original, and it updates it and change and does something kind of different but still the same. Like, this to me is what a remake should be.
By the way, I see what you did with the skeleton joke there, and I quite liked it.
I didn't intend that.
Well, in that case, I'm going to push you into a vat of acid.
But if you've never seen the original House on Haunted Hill, it is streaming for free on Amazon Prime, both in black and white and in color, but apparently you should watch the black and white.
The color version.
Yeah.
That is sacrilege.
The selling argument for me was that the shadows are better in the black and white version, so I was like, okay, done, sold. It's a goofy little movie with the skateboarding blind old hag that drives around. She likes to wheel in like around the rooms and scare like the Ali Larter character, like Nora in the original,
who's insufferable.
But they play it off. Sorry, we'll get to it. They play it off in this one with the Ali Larter character. Because they're trying. Okay, sorry, we'll get into it. Going down the crew list again, though. So we have Don Davis doing the score for this film, and I'm going to tell you right now, I think the score for this movie is awesome. I love the organ music. I think it's fantastic.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
He did the score for Valentine, which I also really like, even though the movie's not great. He did the score for the Matrix trilogy, but what the score for this movie reminded me of the most was his score for Bound from 1995.
I love that we just watched that when I was visiting you for Fantastic Fest, and I can't remember the score.
Well, do you remember the open? It's really bombastic. It's like really big, over the top, and the title card when it's like the words "bound," like the letters "bound" on like they're like big tile block letters, and it's just like this extremely over the top, like bombastic score. That's what this is. It's not organ music like this.
Also very much describes this score. Yeah. So.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like this feels like a natural progression from the Bound score, just using organ music.
Mm-hmm. Which is always good. I love a good organ score in a horror film.
Yeah. And it works for this movie too. It's just so creepy and it's so good. I mean, this movie holds a place in my heart because it showed on TBS or TNT a lot when I was growing up. So it was one of those ones where like I recorded it with a VHS, but I would stop recording during the commercial, so I had like a full copy of it, like that I could just watch. But it was the edited version, so right. When I was watching it this time, I was like remembering like the dubbing over the fucks in the movie.
Right. Yes. Experiences that, poor teenagers who are just dabbling in horror films will never experience. Like that first time that you watch a film and you realize, oh, I never actually heard them swear because I was watching like the TBS or, the HBO edited for television version of a film.
Exactly. Well, I have the same thing with Deep Blue Sea. Like I remember all the blurbs and I Know What You Did Last Summer. It's like all the dubbing from that movie too. So our last two crew members, cinematographer and editor, I'm going to combine them into one because... Sure. So cinematographer Rick Boda, who listeners may know, also shot Tales from the Crypt Demon Knight and from that episode, and he also shot Valentine. But he directed Hellraiser Deader, Seeker, and Hellworld, which are the 6 through 8 entries of Hellraiser. And the editor of this movie, Anthony Adler, also edited all of those movies.
Which is hilarious to me because, so... people know I like Hellraiser quite a lot, and I frequently talk about my enthusiasm for the franchise, but that only extends through the first 4 films.
Yeah.
And those later ones, where they're not even trying to pretend that they were ever touching like a Pinhead or Clive Barker mythology, they're just repurposed garbage scripts so that they can maintain the rights and maybe make a couple $1,000s off a DVD release. They're so fucking bad. And Rick Boda is so fucking bad. His direction is terrible.
It's just very boring. But here's the funny thing too. So because whenever my husband and I started dating, like I remember because I'd seen the first 2 Hellraisers, but that was it. And I remember him telling me, "Oh no, the 5th one, Inferno, was actually really good," and that's directed by Scott Derrickson.
Is that the cyber one?
No, that's Hellworld. Inferno is the one.
I think I've asked this question of you before.
Yeah, you should know this. No, Inferno is the one with the cop. It's Dennis from 30 Rock, like the douchebag.
Oh fuck, I hate that one so much.
Well, no, so do I. And so he showed it to me, and I was like, "This isn't very good." And then when Andrew, my husband, and our 2 friends, Trey and Matt, when we did a Hellraiser marathon last year, Trey was very much like, "Oh my god, no, Inferno is like one of the best ones. It's so good." And I had to sit through that fucking movie again.
Well, I think one of the main reasons you would really dislike it is because it's more of a film noir than it is a horror film.
Yeah, but also that character is terrible.
Oh, he's the worst.
But it is directed by Scott Derrickson, who would go on to direct Doctor Strange and Sinister.
Never heard of him. Yeah.
I know. Sorry, I bring it up though because someone just wrote a defense or like a celebratory article of Hellraiser Inferno for Bloody Disgusting.
Oh my gosh! Okay.
I know. It had like a 20th or something anniversary.
Well, it couldn't be 20th. No.
Yeah, it could. It was 1999.
Maybe. Gosh.
Maybe.
I could have sworn that most of those.
The movie we're discussing is on its 20th anniversary.
Still talking about House on Haunted Hill. In case people haven't realized, we both really, really like this movie. It's not like we're trying to delay getting to talking about this movie.
No.
It just has a bunch of, like, it's a confluence of factors like directors and actors and people behind the scenes that have a lot of talking points in our lives.
But that's a good success. I'm going to leave the cast for when you do your plot summary, because I'm going to go back to the reception and the box office, because so as we discussed, this had a $37 million budget. It opened at number 1. It's Halloween weekend.
Mm-hmm. I contributed to that gross.
I mean, I was 10 years old, so I couldn't see this movie.
Oh my God, we get it. You're young. Like, you're practically just sticking a leg out of the womb. You're so young.
So it made $15.9 million, and it ended up grossing 40.8. 40.8 though, against a $37 million budget.
Not good.
Which isn't good. And that's why I'm like, by the way, adjusted for inflation, that's $72.3 million. So you're looking at a movie
Still
that had...
not good.
Yeah. No, but like, so the budget today would have been like $65 million, and then the box office gross would have been $72.3 million.
Yeah, no.
So it's fascinating that...
that Dark Castle didn't just shut the doors and turn off the lights.
Well, but this movie got that much money, But as you mentioned, Anaconda was, what, $45 million, which is probably like closer to $80 million today. But yeah, like, what... I actually... Okay, wait. I wanted to look up what the budget for 13 Ghosts was, because I wonder if they learned their lesson.
Probably not.
So 13 Ghosts... Oh my God!
I was going to say, it's more expensive, isn't it?
13 Ghosts had a budget of $42 million.
Oh my God, they learned nothing.
It came out 2 years later, Halloween weekend 2001, and it ended up grossing $41 million. So it made $1 million less than what the budget was, but it made $26 million overseas, so worldwide was $68. But House on Haunted Hill, I don't think went overseas, or if it did, I don't have the box office for it.
Interesting.
So, yeah, I don't know who was... I mean, like, God bless them. Like, they gave us these movies, but
right.
I don't think they're great at business.
Well, I think the big thing that you touched on is that they spent a lot of money on the look and the design of these films, which is very late 90s, early 2000s. Like, they were going for the MTV generation. They wanted to shoot these things like they looked like a fucking music video. And I think they thought that they needed to have that really stylish aesthetic in order to reel people in. And it does work. Like, whenever you hear people talk about these early Dark Castle films, people will almost always talk about the look of these films.
Yeah.
But, like, you can't be spending that much money and then market, let's be honest, not particularly good films and hope that, like, adult horror fans are going to come out and see them. Because I feel like these films were all very squarely aimed at teenagers up until Gothica.
So you know what I was gonna say though, because I think that when you talk about this production of Dark Castle, it's really House of Haunted Hill and 13 Ghosts, because Ghost Ship doesn't really have the same look, because it's mostly just the same halls over and over and over and over again. Yeah,
I hate Ghost Ship.
I
like that opening, and the rest of the movie is hot garbage.
It's pretty boring. I think that's my problem with it. And, also, that was Halloween 2002, so a year after 13 Ghosts. The budget for that, $20 million.
There you go. So they learned their lesson, and they threw up some cardboard walls and then had Juliana Margulies run up and down them. Yeah,
exactly. So yeah, but again, you can see the budget's cut in half. Boom. The production design is like, let's use the same murky, moldy hallways over and over again. So.
And I'm not suggesting that everything in House on Haunted Hill works. Like, the number of times that they're reusing that, that one hallway and that one staircase. Like,
yeah.
Considering the size, supposedly, of this house, in quotation marks, you're really only seeing about 2 floors.
I was gonna say, like, it's a liberal use of the word house.
Yes. You mean the Vannacutt Institute for the Criminally Insane, that they also refer to as a house.
It's so ridiculous.
I love it.
And the original, it is like a legit. It's also okay. So reception. Sorry, I was gonna say something. But I was like, let's do reception first, because so this movie was poorly received on all fronts. 30% on Rotten Tomatoes with an average score of 4.55 out of 10. Audiences 42% with an average score of 6 out of 10. So that's okay.
A little better.
Metacritic 28 out of 100 from critics, but a 14 out of 100 from audiences. I glanced at the review blurbs on Rotten Tomatoes. The most common thing was like, well, it's not as bad as The Haunting, because that came out like 3 months before this did.
And if you want to talk about egregious and terrible CGI, I feel like that was the film that we all wanted to shit on in 1999.
Well, and the thing with The Haunting is, too, that it's not fun. This movie, at least while maybe not good, is very fun.
The most fun part, spoiler for The Haunting, is when Owen Wilson gets his head taken off.
But yeah, a lot of it was, oh, it's too bloody. Oh, it takes a classic and trashes it. And I'm going to tell you right now, I enjoyed the original House on Haunted Hill, but a classic?
It's a classic because of Vincent Price.
Yes, but it's real dumb.
Oh yeah, it's stupid. Like, it's a dumb film as well. So it's not like they declassed it. Like, they didn't defile the corpse of the House on Haunted Hill.
Right? Like, that's like, because the movie is very, honestly, we could have done a double bill. Like, that movie's very campy.
It is indeed.
And the only thing that this movie, the remake, really takes, like, almost word for word, are the scenes between Vincent Price and the wife. Like, a lot of that is just, like, their first couple encounters are word for word the same.
Which is hilarious, because they are cutting. Like, they are mean-spirited.
I was like, cutting, like, editing? No, you mean, like, they're trading barbs.
Yes.
Yeah, well, even for back then, I was like, this is really intense for 1959. Were these, like, ladies' panties, like, getting in a wad over this?
Maybe. But, I mean, we haven't actually ever done an old film on this podcast, mostly because we're worried that people won't download them, because we get to see those numbers, you big jerks, and you only really like new stuff.
Yeah, no, we did Daughters of Darkness, and that was one of our least downloaded episodes.
Sucks, because that episode is really funny.
It is really good.
But yeah, I mean, the fun thing about like pre-code era films and films in like 40s and 50s is that like everybody likes to talk about how sensational the 60s and the 70s were, because, you know, we had all these enfants terribles like making blockbusters and doing avant-garde shit. But films were almost more sly back then, because you had to hide stuff. So innuendos and wink, wink, nudge, nudge was kind of the name of the game. And I like that Vincent Price really delivered on that in his cheekiness in his old films.
Well, there's also a lot, at least in House on Haunted Hill, because as we've said, I've never seen another one. He breaks the fourth wall a lot. And he looks at the audience when he's saying lines. It's really funny. But, like, this movie tries to do that once with Jeffrey Rush. It's whenever they're going to the roller coaster and he looks at the people and he's like, at the camera, it's about to get really scary. Like, oh, okay, Jeffrey Rush.
Mm-hmm. Well, because Vincent Price, I don't know this for sure. People can correct me if I'm wrong. But I think he liked to imagine himself as a later days Alfred Hitchcock. So his theatrical experiences were very much that. They were an experience. So a lot of people, you know, even if they don't know anything about the House on Haunted Hill, sorry, it's just House on Haunted Hill.
Yeah, it's just House.
I mean, the famous thing that this film is actually known for is that promotional gimmick where he would fly a skeleton over the audience at an appropriate time. And of course, the skeleton had a name called Emergo, because why not?
I'm assuming it was during the skeletal climax of the film.
Yes. Which,
dude, literally, and I put this in my review on Letterboxd, like, when that skeleton popped up and was walking around, I kept thinking of Scary Movie 2, Cindy! This is a skeleton! This is bones! Would you run from Callista Flockhart?
Yeah, I mean, don't be surprised if that film is maybe referencing...
Oh, I'm sure it is. I mean, it's also referencing The Haunting whenever, what's-her-face, fucking Lily Taylor pulls a skeleton out of the fireplace, but yeah.
The less said about that, the better.
Anyway.
Although we could do that one eventually as well.
I
want to hurt ourselves.
Well, there's some homophobia in those first two Scary movies. Oh, wait, The Haunting.
Yes. Scary Movie.
We could do Scary Movie 1 and 2. I know.
April Fool's Day.
Well, they'd all be fun. I just think The Haunting would be kind of a dreadful experience.
Yeah, I'm actually not eager to revisit it, particularly after listening to Gaylords, when just them going through the episode, I was like, nope, not eager to revisit this. It doesn't sound fun.
They rewatched it whenever the show was out, right?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I think so too.
Let's just watch the show instead.
Yeah. Well, we're a good chunk. We're 30 minutes into this podcast, so maybe we should talk about what this movie's about.
Oh, if you insist. If you won't let me talk about Rick Boda anymore, then sure, I'll go through the plot summary.
Girl, Rick Boda has had enough airtime on this podcast.
It's the most anyone's talked about him in years. Boda. Cut to Rick Boda just waiting by the phone. You know, like, how come it never rings anymore?
Hellraiser Hellworld happened. Like, we gave you 3 tries with Hellraiser, man. You failed them all.
Like, Hellraiser is not that hard a property to execute people. Come on.
That's a joke, obviously, but...
It's not, because... Okay, it shouldn't be a hard... Anyway.
Yeah.
All I'm saying is that everybody and their dog is waiting for a Friday the 13th remake or a Nightmare on Elm Street remake, and I'm over here sitting next to Rick fucking Boda waiting for my Hellraiser remake.
Okay, well, Rick Boda's probably like, I'll do it!
Rick Boda's like, do you have $100 in a weekend?
I mean, those movies look like they were filmed for $100, so that tracks.
Well, yeah, and they have no special effects budget, which is why Pinhead arrives for, like, one scene at the end.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Okay. The House on Haunted Hill. So the film opens with an outbreak by the patients.
Wait!
What?
You're forgetting.
Oh my god, you're already breaking it.
No, I'm just saying you're skipping the awesome, like, stop motion opening credit sequence.
Yes, there's an awesome stop motion. I'm trying to think if this was a popular thing at the time, because when I saw the credits playing, I thought, oh, this is giving, like, this is very much the music video aesthetic that I was thinking of when I referenced it earlier. Like, stitching on skin with kind of, like, it's actually a very good indicator of the kinds of scares, in quotation marks, to come in this film. But yes, it's a nice palate cleanser.
For sure.
Yeah. Okay, so after those credits, the film opens with an outbreak by the patients of the Hospital of Horror. And they kill the staff, including Mad Dr. Richard Benjamin Vannacutt, played by Jeffrey Combs, who I had never realized. I never noticed that it was him before this watch. I've seen this film maybe 20 times.
Listeners, if you don't know who Jeffrey Combs is, he is the titular reanimator in the Reanimator movies, which I just saw for the first time earlier this year. And
super fun.
Yeah, they're fine.
Oh my god, you're so disappointing.
I know. I think I didn't grow up with them. I think a lot of horror fans grew up with those movies. I'm more of an Evil Dead guy than I am a Reanimator guy.
Oh god, but you're not even an Evil Dead guy.
No, I am. I love Evil Dead.
Oh, you don't like Army of Darkness?
I think Army of Darkness is fine, but I love the first two.
Okay,
and the remake.
We'll have to have another discussion about this because Army of Darkness should be so your thing. I don't get it. Anyway,
that's fine.
Anyway, okay. Cut to present day.
Oh wait. I'm sorry. I just the intro because so the intro is it opens with like a scalpel like going down like a chest, and I'm like, oh, any of these old people who went to go see this movie thinking, oh, it's that remake of that nice Vincent Price movie.
I'm gonna see a dancing skeleton. What the fuck?
Immediate gore, and then you get all those pencils through the guy's neck like that, and it's a great shot.
It's a very, I mean, kind of like the opening credits, kind of like the score. It's a very bombastic opening. It's like, hey, if you can't handle this shit, this is how we're going to be killing people for the next 93 minutes.
And I appreciate a movie that just, like, what's it called? Like, puts its foot down and just, like, says, this is us.
Yeah. Plants a flag.
Mandy
I don't know what
term
you're thinking of, but...
I don't know. There's like a... it doesn't bury the lead.
There you go. Yeah. Okay, so cut to present day as Evelyn Price, Famke Janssen.
Who, the other person... I know, it's not happening. The other person considered for this role was Elizabeth Hurley, and how great would that have been, too?
Oh.
Really? Okay.
No, I mean, I think she would have been fine. To me, this is one of the iconic performances by Famke Janssen. I've mentioned before, I'm a huge fan of hers. Mm-hmm. I have loved her in nearly every film that she's done. Very excited that she's going to be in a film that we're going to do for the Patreon next month.
Yeah.
Even though I think her role looks not fun in that movie, which is very disappointing.
Yeah, she looks very serious in that movie, but that's okay.
Yeah, it's okay. But I love when she gets to be a huge bitch. So between this and her scene-stealing role in Deep Rising, like, these late 90s roles are really good for her.
As I mentioned at the top of the episode, Xenia Onatopp, the woman who kills during sex with her thighs in GoldenEye.
Yeah. If you think about it, she's actually one of the few recent Bond girls to have really had a career after she was a Bond girl. Because a lot of them are models and they don't really go on to do anything. And yes, I'm obviously not including what's her name? Shit, Eva Green. But I don't actually consider Eva Green to be like the ingenue that a lot of other Bond girls were when they got the role. So.
Right. No, I get that. And obviously we're also like, we're not mentioning the X-Men movies, which is fine. But, you know, those movies did Famke Janssen dirty.
Yeah, they did. Even The Last Stand, which is an obviously terrible film, but it's meant to be the showcase for her. And instead, it's motherfucking Wolverine's party.
Yeah.
Welcome back to Talking X-Men, a queer superhero podcast.
So she's in the bathtub watching Peter Graves.
So I also did not remember that it was Peter Graves, and it's got this terrible TV show called Terrifying but True.
So no, I didn't know who he was, Peter Graves. I had no idea. But
make me sad.
No, there was one thing that I knew him from, and do you know what it was? It was Addams Family Values. Whenever Joan Cusack, Debbie Zielinski or whatever, is watching like the most notorious murderers, and it's like he's talking about the Black Widow, and it's her, so she's watching this like true crime thing on herself being delivered by Peter Graves.
Nice.
I just knew his voice from that.
I love that he's very tongue-in-cheek as he got older and sort of matured out of leading man roles. So yeah, he would just show up in, you know, weird shit like this where I imagine his agent delivering this role to him and him being like, well, I do need a new bathroom.
Yeah.
Okay, so she's watching this on the television in the bath, and then she calls her husband, who is theme park prankster Stephen Price, played by Jeffrey Rush.
Woo. And
he's preparing to launch his latest roller coaster, Terra Incognita.
Which I've ridden before, by the way.
Oh, is it a real,
Yeah, that roller coaster, it's not, well, it doesn't have the gimmick, but it is the Incredible Hulk at Universal's Islands of Adventure in Orlando, Florida. So if you've ridden the big green roller coaster at Universal Studios, that is the Terra Incognito.
It's like you've been touched by this movie.
Yeah, exactly.
Inappropriately, of course. So
I'll be there in December, and so I'm going to try to ride it again.
Take a picture.
Yeah.
Okay. So he's showcasing this Terra Incognita roller coaster to intrepid reporters Lisa Loeb and Buffy Spike, James Marsters.
I don't know who Lisa Loeb is. I think she's like a singer, but James Marsters is like, oh my god.
Yes. Yeah, it was quite the shock because neither one of them should be in this movie.
This would have been during season 3 of Buffy. So he was prominent.
He was prominent to the point where you're like, why is he in this? Why is it also not a bigger role?
Yeah. Like, well, yeah. Why couldn't
he? He's not in any of the advertising because he's obviously not.
There's only one scene.
Part.
Yeah.
But it's also one of those things where you wonder if anybody else actually knew him or if it was like just the loyal Buffy fans. So we make a big deal out of it, but I think everybody else was just like, who? What?
But I jest about Lisa Loeb, but like she's like people know her, right?
Oh, yeah. She has one of the, like, biggest one-and-done singles of the 90s. And people will come at me, yeah, she technically has two, but really we all know it's just one.
Okay, I don't know what that means. So, yeah, they're there.
Yeah, so they're there, and so Evelyn is like, hey, I saw this thing, I know where I'm doing my birthday party, and she sends him the guest list. And he's like, cool, princess. Also, fuck you. Into the shredder it goes. And he decides he's going to make up his own list. And then he closes the door to his office. And we get our first laugh out loud example of supernatural powers in this film, where the computer reboots itself, deletes the list, and makes up a new list.
And cue Marilyn Manson's sweet cover of Sweet Dreams, which is great. But this is also one of the first big changes. Actually, I'm sorry, it's like the third big change from the original. Because in the original, he does change the guest list, but he does know, like,
he knows the people.
Yeah, he knows who, like, they are who he invited, basically. Mm-hmm. This one, the house has magic powers outside of its domain, like.
Yes, it does. In fact, there's even a line later where they attribute it to it must have traveled through light waves and phone lines, and then I believe it's Ali Larter says, through an online computer?
I do not remember that line at all. Oh my god.
Oh my god. I love... Okay. So I have a super soft spot for techno thrillers of the late 90s where basically everyone's afraid of Y2K and nobody knows anything about digital literacy. So stuff like this, Enemy of the State, The Net.
Yeah.
I mean,
The Net is...
Like, those films are time capsule perfection. I love to revisit them and just be like, oh, apparently online, everyone will literally steal your idea. Oh God, everything they were predicting has come true.
An online computer. But also, though, because
online computer?
I feel like we fall into this trap a lot, though, because we pick so many movies from 1999. I think what we're going to have to do is, at the end of the year, like, look at all the movies we've done and, like, say, okay, like, here's all the years and see which one's the most popular, because I feel like it's going to be 99.
Oh, no, for sure. It's 99. Yeah, like, we engineered it. There are other anniversaries hidden in there. There's a couple of, like, 2009s. There's, I think, a 2014.
Yeah.
But for the most part, we picked a lot of films that are significant to us because they came out in 99.
Yeah. So, okay. Marilyn Manson.
Marilyn Manson. Okay, so then we get like this sort of hazy montage of people being driven in limos. They're all looking at the invitation because they're probably as confused about why they were invited as we are. So they are disgraced tabloid wannabe Melissa Marr, played by Bridget Wilson.
I love Bridget Wilson. I've been a fan of her since Billy Madison, Mortal Kombat. I mean, obviously, I know you did last summer. The Wedding Planner. I mean, is she still married to Pete Sampras or did they get divorced?
She is, I believe, still married to him because on IMDb it says that she's Bridget Wilson Sampras, but Sampras.
Yeah.
Sampras. Say it again. But at the time, she was not married to him.
Apparently, Cindy Crawford was considered for this role.
Okay. I like that better than the alternative casting for Evelyn.
Yeah. I mean, my thing is, I wish Bridget Wilson had a bigger part. Like, I wish...
Oh, for sure. She dies so early. I always forget. Early.
Well, you know what you do? If you made this today, you make the Peter Gallagher character her, and you make Evelyn a lesbian.
Oh, I like it. And also, stop stepping on my toes.
Oh, right.
That's coming later.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Melissa Marr, tabloid wannabe. Slimy Dr. Blackburn, played by Peter Gallagher, who would go on to be more famous for shit like The OC.
Yeah.
A former athlete Eddie, played by Taye Diggs, and then secret assistant Sarah, played by Ali Larter, who is posing as a high-powered executive named Jennifer for part of the movie.
I'll touch on this for a minute. So there are 3 deleted scenes on the DVD and Blu-ray. So there is a scene early on that was deleted where it shows Sarah, Ali Larter, with her boss, Jennifer Jensen, played by Debbie Mazar.
Yes. Empire Records and Younger step through.
Yes, and Beethoven 2.
Oh, okay.
No, but like she gets the invitation and then she's like a huge cunt. And also in this deleted scene are Mark Blucas and Ivana Milicevic.
Wait, what is she from? Is she a model who went on to become an actress?
Yes, she's done I don't think she's ever had a starring role, but she's always in things.
Was she in Head Over Heels with Freddie Prinze Jr.?
Yes, Head Over Heels. She's the Russian.
Yes. Okay, and look up. She was on Banshee. She was on a TV show called Banshee, right?
Yes, and I didn't watch that, but that's the Alan Ball show. Yeah, so she's in that. She's also. I knew her also from the Reese Witherspoon, Mark Ruffalo romantic comedy, Just Like Heaven. Ooh. Yeah, she's like the slutty neighbor. She's also in Casino Royale as not a Bond girl, but she's like one of the henchwomen.
Yes, she is.
Anyway,
but
okay,
yeah. So all of these people, they show up. And...
Wait! I was just saying, there's a deleted scene though where it shows her take like the invitation after Debbie Mazar fires her, and they cut it because it. Apparently, it was bad for the pacing, and then there's also an ending scene when Debbie Mazar inherits the house and walks inside and screams, and the realtor is Jeffrey Combs. And they thought the ending of that was too funny compared to how the movie ends, which we'll get to in a bit.
Yeah, which I definitely laughed out loud when you told me that part. Okay, so all of these people, they arrive at the Vannacutt Institute, and they are met by groundskeeper Pritchett, who is played by Chris Kattan in one of the first roles after he abandoned SNL.
Wait, was he out of SNL? But I thought he was still doing it.
He might have been, but this was definitely him being like, I'm sticking a foot out the door because I can probably make more money and be better appreciated.
I will say, I think he's actually really good in this movie.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of people who actually credit him and Jeffrey Rush as the main selling features of this film. Mm-hmm. I think it's just because they're both funny. They both get to be amusing.
Right. That's true.
Yeah. Okay, so Evelyn and Price declare that they have no idea who any of these people are, but Price still guarantees each of them $1 million if they can survive through the night. And in case you're wondering, that is upped for inflation, the cost of living, because it was only $10,000 in the original.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, also, big difference, too. In the original, there are no ghosts. There were no actual ghosts in the original movie.
Oh, yeah. I think that's actually what you were going to mention earlier, is that there's no supernatural elements in the original film. It's all just fun and games between husband and wife.
Right. It's like the remake does the opposite, which I think is really cool.
Yes. I feel like if they had have executed it better, people would be more forgiving.
Probably. Well, we'll talk about it. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay, so anyone who leaves or is killed will have their share divided among the remaining survivors. So, of course, Price is actually very confident that he will not have to pay out any of these losers because he's got the whole place rigged up by his technician, Schechter, who is another Buffy connection, played by Max Perlich, and he is Whistler from Buffy from the season 2 finale.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He does the weird voiceover with Angel and shit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's actually in a bunch of other stuff, but I'm always just like, oh, Whistle from Buffy!
Yeah, no, that's all I know him from.
Okay, so clearly the people who made this movie either filmed this on a WB set and they were next door to Buffy, or they were all big fans.
Season 4 wouldn't have been in production yet, but maybe Lucas had already been cast in Buffy because he was in season 4. It's just so funny to me.
Very odd. Okay, so the house almost immediately goes into lockdown, and all of the windows and doors are covered in Loctite. Evelyn encourages Price to introduce the party favors, which are firearms and tiny coffins for each person. And Price then sneaks away to congratulate Schechter on the lockdown, but the technician denies any involvement.
Bum, bum, bum.
Bum, bum, bum. Well, what's happening? Oh my god, I'm so confused. Okay. Pritchett, Price, Sarah, and Eddie wander the basement and discover various treatment rooms, including one for electroshock therapy and another for saturation treatment. And in case you didn't think those would come back later, you've never seen a movie before.
Oh, I wrote, because it's one or the other, I wrote Chekhov's hidden room behind a brick wall, Chekhov's saturation chamber, Chekhov's black wormy things creeping out of the wall.
Yeah. The film is not subtle about cueing you up that there's a bunch of shit that's going to go down in all of these various rooms, which, I mean, in a way is just very smart screenwriting, but it's also yeah, okay, we get it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, Sarah is quickly separated from everyone, and she follows who she believes is Eddie, but is not, and then she is nearly drowned in a bath of blood the size of a Buick.
And this is when she gives her confession about how she's not really Jennifer Jensen.
Yeah, and I like that Eddie's like, yeah, no shit.
Yeah, I get it, bitch. You knew how to connect wires together. Top executives don't do that shit.
Well, I just like when she tries to pronounce Jennifer Jensen's name, she's like, Jennifer Jensen, MVP CIA. And everybody's like, okay. No, we're not falling for that. She's thoroughly unconvincing as a
I will say, though, Ali Larter, gets out of this movie very well compared to that girl from the original movie who's, in her same role.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think anybody's going to say, oh, yeah, the Ali Larter character is my favorite. But
no. Well, I mean,
as the Blando lead, she's...
Yeah, exactly. She's your protagonist. It's just bleh.
She has to be here. Somebody's got to live, right?
Yeah.
It can never be the interesting people who live.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of interesting, Melissa goes off in search of exciting footage, and I just wanted to put a pin in this for 1 second. I love that Melissa is constantly like, I'm on the hunt for good footage. Oh my god, something shocking that's going to get me this. And every time something happens, bitch has got her camera down. You're like, why aren't you, you would be the most terrible person at found footage because she's constantly turning off the camera or not filming.
Yeah, and I was also like, she's just videotaping stuff. What is she expecting to happen here? It takes forever for any of them to believe that ghosts are actually there. Honestly, it's the last 10 minutes whenever the black thing comes out, and they're like, oh wait, there's really ghosts. I'm like, bitch, y'all have been dealing, people are dead.
Yeah, they seem to think that people are dying, but maybe not actually dying. I think because they know who Price is, they believe that none of it is actually real. But even still, we talked about this last week when we were talking about people under the stairs. When you go into one of those fake haunt attractions, it doesn't, your brain doesn't just say, oh, well, I know that this is fake, so I'm not going to get scared. That's not how these work. You would still be freaked out. You're still locked in this building, even if you're suspicious of what's actually happening.
Right, exactly.
So she goes off in search for exciting footage, and she sees some ghostly figures on her video camera one time, and then she gets fucking murdered off screen.
But I will say that when they look at the footage and it's like that's scary to me. That's very scary.
No, that didn't work for me because it's just her hand and sound effects. Like, I thought that we should have seen the camera get dragged up the wall because you see the blood stain.
Yeah, that would've
very
been cool.
Nightmare on Elm Street a la Tina. You know, she disappeared into the house. And I'm like, wouldn't it have been more fun to have had the camera go up and around and then drop to the floor?
The $37 million budget was spent on the house.
Right.
No, but it reminded me of when Drew Barrymore dies in Scream. And the parents hear her go getting gutted.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it reminded me of.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay, so we now go into montage mode as everyone investigates the house. So this is the point where Price discovers that Schechter is dead in the control room in one of the best practical effects use in this entire movie.
Well, I mean, that's the thing too. These movies are all very good at practical effects because they're all like, I mean, 13 Ghosts does employ more CGI in some instances, but this one is pretty good about its practical effects. Like, there is some gnarly gore in this movie, and this face, what do you even call this? Like a facial disembowelment or a facial vacuum?
Well, it either looked like something punched his face in, so it's just like a lower jaw and the back of the head, or they ripped up his, like, the top part of his mouth and just, like, ripped it up like a flap of skin.
Okay, see, what I thought it was that it's... Okay, like, obviously this isn't what actually happened, but like, this is what it is. They basically, like, cut, like, a square in his face and then just removed everything that was inside.
Yeah, they scooped it out like an ice cream.
Yeah, it was like an ice cream. He got ice cream scooped.
We're coining it. We are... and we're going to trademark that shit.
And I don't think I've ever seen something like that done since this movie.
Nothing's coming to mind, but I'm going to put it as a challenge to listeners. Tell us if somebody else has had their face ice cream scooped.
Yes, let us know.
Okay. So Schechter is dead. And then almost immediately afterwards, Evelyn is also discovered dead. She's been killed in the electroshock therapy
on Chekhov's electroshock chamber.
Yeah. Well, you're not going to introduce an electroshock therapy room and then not use it.
I think it's such a boring... I actually prefer the hanging of the wife in the original movie.
Yeah, they don't do anything like that in this film.
I mean, well, she's getting electroshocked.
Well, no, I mean, like, they don't do anybody getting hung or anybody, like, pushed into a vat of acid. Like, everything in this movie is far more loud and 90s.
I will say it is getting hanged. If you say getting hung, it means you're, like, hanging them on a wall or they're, like, have a big penis.
Maybe I'm just thinking of the cover of The Mutilator, where everybody gets hanged.
Okay.
No, just cut that out, Shade.
That was a great joke. I love it.
All right. So she's dead, and everybody goes, who would want to murder Evelyn? So Price tries to deflect this by saying, well, I didn't kill her, so obviously you killed her, to everybody else. And they go, yeah, right, buddy. And then Dr. Blackburn says, let's lock him up in this saturation chamber. So Price is in there and he gets to hallucinate. And this is one of the sequences that I don't know if it's aged particularly well, but I always found it very creepy.
No, when watching this as a kid, I thought it was great. The
head effect does not look good when the guy's bouncing the ball and then it turns into Steven's head.
Yeah,
it doesn't look great.
But I like when it zooms in on Vannacutt and it's like he's like a drawing and it like zooms into his mouth as he's like maniacally laughing. I think it's very scary. Yeah. I don't think it serves much of a purpose. So like there's a scene coming up that they removed, that second of 3 deleted scenes, and they're like, it's like a minute and a half long, and they're like, we cut it for time, and I'm like, but that kind of is cool. And you have this saturation chamber scene that goes on for like 5 minutes. And you could have cut some of that.
Yeah. Especially the part where he like goes underwater and sees the woman and she turns and the blood leaks out of her mouth. You're like, yeah, it all looks cool, but I've also seen a Marilyn Manson video before.
So many corpse titties in this movie. Corpse titties galore.
Yeah, if you like jacking it to corpse titties, this movie is your jam. For sure.
No man butt, no dick, but lots, and no living titties, but lots of corpse titties.
Yeah, which is also a little bit surprising. This seems like the kind of film that you would see living titties. Living titties? Is this the thing that we're saying now?
Yeah, living titties. You gotta be specific in these situations.
I I mean, admittedly, all of these actresses, I don't think any of them have ever gone topless, so I don't imagine this would be the one.
That's why in 13 Ghosts, you get the topless ghost the whole time. Because Shannon Elizabeth was like, I just did American Pie, I'm not going to do this again.
And kudos to her, because
yeah,
no one should have to be like, you should be able to say, I'm fucking famous, I'm not showing my fucking tits anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
People can spank bang to the original one. Yeah. Go fuck a pie if you're really into that. Okay, moving on. Sarah and Eddie go through Vannacutt's office and they discover that all of the guests are related to the employees who were there the night of the fire
the survivors of the night of the fire.
There we go. Yeah. Which makes sense, because if not, like, how would they have lived?
Well, right, yeah, they're descendants, and so, yeah, the house is, like, trying to, like, finish the job and, like, kill everyone who's, like, in the family line of everyone who was in the house that night. I'm sorry, the quote-unquote house that night.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But...
except, of course, for Blackburn, who is like, what? He's not attached to any of this, and it's because he's secretly working with Evelyn, and she has faked her own death.
Okay, so I have seen this movie a lot, and I do not remember. Maybe they cut this out of the TV version, or maybe they cut it short. But when he sticks a hand in her pussy, and then goes, cold. And then he's like rubbing his hand down and he goes, you're suddenly very cooperative, Mrs. Price, because she's unconscious.
Yeah. Well, she's acting unconscious, but at the time we don't know that, so we just think he's feeling up a corpse.
Yes. And it's but even still, like, even if you know that she's not really dead, it's still gross because she's unconscious.
Yes. See previous episode on the loved ones for discussions about consent. This is not consent because Evelyn is unconscious. Yes. So he wakes her back up and she's like, baby, I love you, but also I need a higher body count. So she kills him.
What a waste.
It's a bit thankless. And this is the point where I was like, okay, she's really a diva and she's she's not the nicest of women, but I never got the impression that she was a murderer.
Yeah,
this feels very out of character.
Well, and so what you're forgetting is, though, so basically she gets mad. So they're trying to scare all of the people with the guns so that one of them will kill Jeffrey Rush. And but then when she's like, where's the reporter, Bridget Wilson? And he's like, oh, we can't find her. And she freaks out. It's like, why the fuck did you wake me up? She could be watching us right now. Oh my God, like no one's ever going to believe this is real. Blah, blah, blah. Oh, we need another body so that they get more scared.
Yeah.
And that's why she kills him.
Yeah, that's the explanation. I just don't think it works.
No, I totally agree. And again, at this point, no one still believes that there's actually ghosts in the house except for Chris Kattan.
Yeah, and nobody else even seems that worried, to be honest. Like, which also doesn't exactly make sense. You would think that Sarah would be flipping the fuck
after the blood,
out
right?
After the bloodbath, yeah.
Yeah, which is much scarier than a fucking skateboarding ghost wheeling into the room and then wheeling out in the original movie. Well, and I also... okay, we're going into, like, obviously it's a horror movie, they have to go somewhere, but why didn't they all just stay in the lobby?
Right.
Like, they're like, we have to get out. And I'm like, okay, or you can wait in the lobby until 8 a.m.
I mean, I think part of it is that they weren't sure whether or not the doors would actually ever open. So,
but they said the caretakers came at, like, 9:30. The caretakers come at 9:30.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, it's whatever. It's a movie.
Yeah, you've got to move your characters into different rooms so that you can do different fun things. But
yeah,
as we've talked about, the the screenplay and the motivations are a little suspect.
For sure.
Yeah. Okay, so at this point, they're like, okay, the doctor's body has been discovered. Oh my God. Someone is definitely killing people. And they go to check on Price, and he's gone. He's not in the saturation chamber. And then he ends up semi-accosting Sarah in the hallway.
You're also forgetting, though, when they look in the saturation chamber and Blackburn's face is in the window. And they open.
I didn't forget it. I just don't care.
So. Oh, I was just like, it's a cool effect, though. His head has like all the viscera hanging out of it when they open the door.
Okay, but here's the thing. How did Evelyn drag his entire body without being discovered, too? Not even enough that she, like, dragged a fully grown man's body, then decapitated him because she stabbed him in the gut. Yeah. So she then took off his head and then delicately balanced it in the saturation chamber and closed the door.
Without the head falling off of the ledge that it was sitting on. Yes!
I loved it. I was like, oh, she is good. She is really good at this murder game.
Yeah, no, she's great. She is a femme fatale for the ages.
Yes. Yeah. She is a queen. So, so Price ends up kind of attacking Sarah because we're meant to believe that he's still crazy from his time in the saturation chamber, and she shoots him dead multiple times, but thankfully never in the head because he's also faked his own death.
Yes.
So Evelyn shows up, and the two of them battle. They get into a physical altercation in which he, really throws her around a lot.
Yeah, and she's wearing this, really cool, lavendery gown thing that her outfits in this movie are actually really good. There's also
really good.
Earlier in the movie she has glitter accenting her eyes. I don't know what it was, but it was really cool.
Yeah, she's a rich bitch and she likes to look pretty even when she's supposed to be dead. So he throws her through a barricaded section of the house, which is the part that we've already seen the black creepy crawly things on the wall, and in doing so they unleash the dark spirits of the house.
So I did want to say, this part happens at the 77-minute mark when he essentially kills her by doing this, and I know we'll get to her death in a second. This is basically as long as the original movie, which is a 74-minute movie.
Yeah.
So it follows most, because then basically in the original, once he kills the wife in the vat of acid, then he tells everyone, oh yeah, she's dead. Justice can have its way with me or whatever. So then, yeah, what this movie does is it goes, okay, cool, we're gonna go one step further and have this giant thing take up the last 15 minutes of this movie.
Yeah, so we're going into the last act of this film. It's a little bit shorter than the other ones, but at this point, the evil is now unleashed. It's not about humans versus humans. We're not trying to pretend that there's any kind of mystery. It's a whole bunch of... The house is now going up against these people. So Evelyn gets eaten by this laughing, screaming Rorschach CGI cloud, and Price tries to run up the stairs. Of course, everybody else has barricaded the door because they're like, wait, Price is still alive? Oh, but he murdered Evelyn and the doctor, so we're not going to let him up here. They end up consenting to open the door after all, and then Pritchett just gets sucked in because Price has managed to hide in the wall. And the three remaining survivors make a run for the attic, where the mechanism to lift the doors is hidden.
So, wait, really quick. So this is the other deleted scene. So Price makes it to the attic first, and then Ali Larter and Taye Diggs are running through the hall as the floor is, blowing up behind them.
Which I don't like, by the way. It felt very... to be honest, it felt a little bit like Deep Rising.
See, for me, it reminded me of Tremors.
Okay, yeah.
But basically, there's a part where they end up at a dead end, and he jumps on a chandelier, and she jumps on him too, but then she falls through the floor into a pit of dirt, and she's trying to grab something, and basically all the zombies of all the corpses of the tragedy come and attack her.
Oh, I like that.
And they're swarming her and they're all this stuff. They pull off her jacket, which is why in the final cut of the film, she loses her jacket between scenes, but you don't know why. It's a continuity error. But yeah, Taye Diggs reaches down and pulls her out. But it's a really cool effect that's 90 seconds long, and they cut it for time.
Yeah. Huh. So I guess they felt that some of the other sequences that we talked about being a little too long were just more powerful, or maybe it's because at this point you're really trying to ramp it up. You don't need another distraction, you just want to get to your climax,
I guess. But honestly, I was this is kind of cool. I wish it's zombies, so maybe it's it's not ghosts, so they were oh, we don't want that, but right. I thought it was pretty cool.
Okay. Interesting. So the three of them make it up to the attic, and they're trying to... Basically, it's just a system of hoists on ropes, and you just have to pull on the rope, and it'll open up the shutters so that you can escape out of the house. So that's what they do. And
they could have done from the get-go, apparently?
Could have done it from the get-go, but apparently Pritchett never bothered to talk to them about it, despite flipping the shit out the entire movie. Again, plotting, not this film's strength. So... Price sacrifices himself to save Sarah, despite
which makes no sense.
He has never demonstrated any inclination to helping any of the others, so he's dead. And she manages to get out onto the windowsill. Eddie is locked in because the rope gets finger flicked by the cloud. And he, at this point... Eddie has some of the worst lines in this movie. It's really bad for Taye Diggs, but...
He's fine in the movie, but, his character's just so boring.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Like, at least Ali Larter gets to play the I'm a person who's pretending to be somebody else, and maybe I'm something different. He's just born.
Adopted.
Yeah, he's adopted. This is his big moment. I was adopted because, of course, he is, because it's the late 90s and he's a black character.
Yeah, but you get a late 90s horror movie letting the black character survive.
Well, almost. Jeez, spoilers.
Oh, yeah, sorry, we're not there
yet. So he basically says, I should not be killed because I was adopted. The Clad does not give two shits, but thankfully we have a Ghost Pritchett who saves him.
It's so bad.
So dumb. So he gets saved and he falls out and then the door slams shut. But thankfully they find the envelope with all the money. So then they're just trapped on the windowsill high above the ocean, $5 million richer.
And then you have that joke.
How are we going to get down from here?
So, funny story. Apparently the original shooting script, it had Price dying at the top of the staircase instead of Pritchett. So he was going to get sucked into the mass.
Which makes more sense.
And then Eddie dies saving Sarah at the top in the attic, which makes more sense.
Makes more sense.
And Sarah and Pritchett are the two survivors.
Why do you think they changed it? Do you think it made sense to say, oh, well, we gave Pritchett this backstory where his generational line has always been killed by the house?
Maybe it was done after casting was completed?
Oh, Chris Kattan? No, he can't survive.
Yeah.
No. That's not believable.
Also, Kattan's death is spoiled in the trailer for this movie. Actually, the trailer for this movie is mostly the Black Mass.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's a lot of that.
I don't remember the trailer at all.
I watched it last night on my DVD.
Okay.
So, we've gone on a long time. I know.
I mean, this is not the kind of, listeners, lest you're afraid that we have not saved enough time to have a really in-depth discussion about, the themes and the metaphors in this film, it's because there's nothing to it. This film is just a lot of fun. And so we thought we would take our time to just go through the plot and make fun of it a little bit.
Well, and we had a lot of digressions, but honestly, no, it's, it was weird watching it immediately after watching the original, because as I was watching, I was like, there's not, because I had this movie at a solid 4.5, because there's a nostalgia factor in play.
For sure.
Absolutely. And I downgraded it to a 3.5, but when I was on Letterboxd, I saw some of the worst scores from horror fans for this movie. I mean, fuck, Brendan Klein gave it a 1.5. I know.
But we've learned that Brendan does not have a great sense of humor for late 90s horror comedies.
Yes. No. Well, but again, will we call this... Because...
Oh, yeah, we should talk about that, I guess.
Well, yeah. So we put this in Camp Month, or Camp Marathon, because of Jeffrey Rush and Famke Janssen.
For sure.
They're in a very different movie than what the rest of the cast is in.
I would argue that Pritchett, Chris Kattan, is kind of in there with them. And even... Okay. So I was going to go along with that statement, and now you know what? I'm walking it back, because Bridget Wilson she's a caricature. The doctor is so sleazy. Really, it's just that
Ali Larter and Tay Days.
Yeah, and it's because they're the straight men to this wacky ensemble of characters.
Yeah. But
everybody else is over the top. This is a very silly, very campy film in a lot of different ways.
It is, but then I think maybe you have juxtaposed with the moments of graphic violence, which nowadays they're a little tame, but they're still the ice scooping that hit really hard, even though you don't see it happen. But I'm wondering if maybe that was what people had an issue with. It was. You also this is around the time when the remakes are getting the slick, sleek music video. You mentioned music videos earlier.
Mm-hmm.
We hadn't hit the real full remake boom that we would get with Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but
because this is Dark Castle, which more or less ushers in the Dimension line when they start to redo all of the. Because what's the company that does all of the Texas Chainsaws and that shit? It's the Michael Bay company.
Oh, Platinum Dunes.
Yeah. So basically, Dark Castle is the OG Platinum Dunes for doing remakes. And then that's when they get all gross, but still sleek.
Yeah. But this one has a slickness to it, but it has, and I love Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but it's not what I would call a fun watch. Like, it's a much more, like disturbing and, like, upsetting watch.
Well, it's actually trying to be a horror film.
Right. But I think maybe 99 people thought that this was trying to do the same thing.
Yes, quite possibly.
And this is the only Dark Castle film to actually employ a gimmick like William Castle, but it wasn't really as clever. They supplied promotional scratch cards to cinemas showing the film, offering ticket buyers a chance to win a money prize similar to the movie's characters.
Yeah. Promotional items from the studio.
I did want to say, though, that... So, my big issue is, there's not really any mystery here because the audience is always well aware of the fact that there are ghosts here.
Mm-hmm.
But the characters are so stupid, and it takes literally until, like, the 80-minute mark for them to be like, oh, right, there's ghosts, and there's 12 minutes left of this movie. The original functions of the way where it's like, oh, like, it's haunted, it's haunted, it's haunted. Oops, no, it's actually this husband and wife just playing each other. Like, it's awesome.
Yeah.
I wonder if it would have been better if this movie had played that angle and been like, oh, it's this husband and wife playing with each other, and then the twist is, oops, no, it's actually haunted.
Yeah.
But then you have to lose the prologue with the Vannacutt stuff. Because that's a big addition to the movie, is like it turns into a mental institution and not just like a haunted house.
Yeah.
But, or like, you can still have the backstory, but like, don't show that opening scene. Like, just have like Pritchett, like, you know, talking about it.
No, I think you could still keep it as an introduction as she's a bit of a creepy, spooky bitch, and then they get to this house and they've got a caretaker who's afraid of the house, but it could just be because of the history, not because he actually thinks it's haunted.
Right.
And then you could do all of the back and forth with the husband and wife, and then pull it out at the end. I mean, I do think the other reason... So the comedy, on one hand, as we've talked about, it's not everybody's cup of tea, or they feel like it jars with the horror intentions. But I think the other big piece is that people did not find the special effects. They were not generous to the special effects.
But
so
it's only those like last 10 minutes, though. That's really all it is.
But you're talking about the thing that people leave the theater on. So,
right. All right,
like,
that makes sense.
If the ending doesn't sell you on it and you just feel like it's dumb when you walk out of the theater, you're far more inclined to be like, I didn't like it.
Right.
I don't know. I personally, like, the reason that I watch this film is not for the ending. It's really to watch Rush and Janssen, Rush and Janssen, to basically hurl quips at each other. Like, I love all of the bitchiness that they have because they are having so much fun.
Yeah, well, no, so I was trying to highlight some lines because, like, again, script, Rip, Dick Beebe, wait, Don Beebe, Dick Beebe, fuck, oh,
I got it here.
No, I just put it away. Dick Beebe,
Dick Beebe,
Rip, Dick Beebe, but not
Dickie.
the best lines. Like, for instance, one of Jeffrey Rush's earliest lines: "Congratulations, on a scale of 1 to 10 on the perversity meter, you just hit a 73."
Mm-hmm. But okay. I do like the line, "Go stir your cauldron for a sec."
Oh, no, that's great. But then, I thought this was just ridiculous, and Famke Janssen does what she can. When he goes, "Let the games begin," and then she goes, "Call me clairvoyant, but haven't they already?" I'm like, who uses the word clairvoyant in everyday talk?
Mm-hmm. But I do like... And I'll throw this to you and I'll see how you react, but I do kind of like how she gay baits him at every instance.
I have that line too, when he talks about like how he's scared of her cheating on him, or what he thinks she's cheating on him, and she's like, "Which part of that fantasy turns you on the most? Me with other men, or just the other men?" And then she like bites, like that sound.
Yeah.
Oh, because he's like tugging on her hair or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's not something that would happen today. Maybe it would. It feels very much like a product of that late 90s, early 2000s of like where you get a lot of homophobia in horror.
Yes. And
so I'm fine with it because it's Famke Janssen and like, what the fuck ever. But you know, if it's like if you get me a guy saying that who's like a douchebag guy, would I be as okay with it? Probably
no, obviously not. But here's the question. Did you, at any point, reevaluate your assumption that Price actually is straight?
I thought about it, because he's very eccentric.
Mm-hmm. That pencil mustache is it's a bit of a queer look.
Well, that's the Vincent Price mustache, but sure.
I said what I said, people.
Vincent Price is gay. Oh my god, everyone's gonna come for us. What's his daughter's name? It's is it Victoria Price?
I don't know.
I don't know. She like does like she like runs around with him. Not with him. Obviously, he's dead.
She's running around with a skeleton, pushing people into vats of acid.
Oh my god, we're going to hell.
She's just got him up in the attic in the rocking chair. Dada.
It is Victoria Price. He has a son, Vincent Price, but Victoria Price is 57, and she's written a memoir, two memoirs.
Memoir?
Vincent Price, A Daughter's Biography. She spends much of her time traveling and speaking about the life of her father, Vincent Price, as well as many inspirational self-development topics.
Wow. I can't wait for my son or daughter to travel the world talking about all of my great achievements.
Hello, Victoria Price came out as a lesbian in the 1980s.
Yes! Okay. Suddenly I'm back on her side. Yes, queen!
That's awesome. Good for her. No, I mean, but yeah, so did I wouldn't say that I seriously like reevaluated whether Price was gay or not, but for the sake of this podcast, I mean, I think it'd be kind of fun.
I think in a 2019 remake, they would make it a marriage of convenience where they just hated each other and she was a vicious lesbian and he was like a homo repressed.
And she's, and her, like, you know, lover is the Melissa Margaret Marr character. And then Dr. Blackburn is just like himself, like.
Or the two of them are in on it, but he doesn't know that, so he thinks that he's going to get like a piece of that pie. It's a lesbian
twist, but okay, but then do you fall into like the whole like, oh, evil lesbian trope? Is that a trope?
It is, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, sure. Then you fall into evil lesbian trope. I don't know.
Well,
I mean,
if everybody in the movie is despicable, then
that's true.
Really say anybody is bad? That's
true. I'll give it that. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, this movie was just such a hallmark of my preteen years that like I'm aware of its faults, but I still think it's really good. And while I don't think it's the best Dark Castle movie, I think it's like ranked pretty up there. You know.
Yeah, I don't know that there's a lot of love to the Dark Castle films from like the people who love horror.
No, it's a certain age. Like you had to be born between X year and X year. I feel it to really. I mean, you're an outlier because you're like a little bit outside of that age gap a little bit. But I think like.
Well, actually, not really. You fucking asshole. I was 17 when this film came out.
Right, but I feel like it's people who were younger than that really like this.
Why do you feel that, Trace?
I don't know.
Like, do you ever realize how weird ageist assumptions you make on this show? You're always just like, oh, well, you're just too old for that. I'm like, okay. I was 17. I was literally the prime Democrat for this fucking movie.
And I was 10 and I was not.
Yeah.
But no, but you saw it in theaters, I guess. Yeah, okay.
I did.
So, I'm sorry, you're right. So you were born in 83?
82, yeah.
82.
I feel like if people were, born in maybe the 70s and they were in their mid-20s when this film came out, I don't think that they would be as big a fan.
Yeah, I was going to say, so maybe it's like 1980 to like 1992. So maybe I'm at the tail end of it, actually.
Yeah, to be honest, I think you're a little bit young, but because you had the you had the access on, repeats on cable,
yeah,
that kind of stuff.
You know what? You're right. I will concede. You're totally right.
Yes, victory points for me.
Your age group wins.
The big thing for me with this film is that I'm pretty sure the reason I love it is because it's one of the most memorable films that my sister and I saw in the theater. Mm-hmm. So my sister and I were very close. As I've mentioned before, she's the one who really indoctrinated me into horror.
Yeah.
But we had to watch a lot of things on home video because I wasn't old enough. So when I started to get into like my mid to late teens, she and I would go to see a lot of horror films. So when Dark Castle started to come out with these remakes and they were really stylish and flashy. So this was like the big kind of kickoff where we would go to a bunch because she hadn't moved out to go to university yet and I was of age.
Well, and see, for me, 13 Ghosts was that movie because my sister did not like watching scary movies, but for some reason, like, I got 13 Ghosts and, like, she loved it. So we watched 13 Ghosts a lot growing up. Like, I watched House on a Hill, like, on TV by myself, but man, 13 Ghosts, my sister was in, and we watched it. she loved Matthew Lillard in it.
Right.
I think the
course.
comedy of him like worked for her.
He's the best part of that film for sure.
Oh, for sure. I mean, he's overacting like a motherfuck, but yeah.
Yes. Well, he's the Jeffrey Rush or the Chris Kattan of that film.
Yeah, I actually really like the Black Nanny in that movie, played by Rodiga.
Interesting. I just heard Sade Sellers talk about it on her podcast, Afro Horror.
Yeah.
I could not... I realized I don't remember that film at all.
Oh, it's fun.
All I remember is the visual aesthetic of, like, the glass corridors.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
That's
you should rewatch it. It's super fun.
Yeah.
And Beth Davids is in it.
I don't know who that is.
Miss Honey from Matilda.
Dude, no.
No? Oh my god.
I have no connection to that.
That's my age group. I know she's also in Junebug with Amy Adams. She's like the new wife.
Oh, okay.
I don't know.
I like that film, but I don't remember much of it either.
She's in I think she's in Fallen. Anyway, sorry. She's big in the 90s.
Okay.
But yeah. So
ooh, put that on my tombstone. Big in the 90s. Just like half the cast of this movie.
But I do think, though, I mean, obviously there are horror remakes happening around the time, but I think that without the success of this movie, I mean, success in quotes, you know, it made $3 million more than its budget. I don't know if we would have the exact same horror remake boon in the early 2000s. Like,
yeah, it really set the stage for it. Even if it financially wasn't a success, I think it gave people the idea, oh, there's money to be made. Or potentially, if it's well done.
Well, also, it's probably like, let's get a bigger film. Because I feel like the original House on Haunted Hill may not be as well known to the masses. Whereas, like, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, like, those are well known to the masses.
For sure. Well, yeah, and at that point, you know, you're 20 years out from when those films were coming. At this point, it was, 40 years? No, you said it before.
This was 40 years after
40
the original.
Years. Yeah, that's a bit of a long historical timeline. They probably thought, oh, okay, well, people will know the title, but they probably weren't expecting, oh, fans of the original are really going to, like, rush to the theater for this.
Or get it confused with The Haunting, which is based on a book called The Haunting of Hill House. So, House on Haunted Hill and The Haunting of Hill House.
You know what? I actually think you just cracked the case. Because if you look at the budget, I mean, the budget is also way higher for The Haunting, but it also made a shit ton more money.
But it was PG-13.
I mean, it's got a bigger director. Yeah, it's PG-13. But because that one opened earlier, I wonder if people went to see it, didn't like it, thought that this one was either the same thing or they just had bad experiences. They were like, no, I'm not going to do another haunted movie.
Right. I mean, also important to know that The Haunting had a budget of $80 million and it grossed domestically $91 million.
Really? I thought it grossed more than that. Huh?
$85 million internationally for a worldwide total of $177 million.
And that's Mr. de Bont, is it not?
Jan de Bont. Yep. Coming off of Speed 2, I believe. So, yeah I mean...
Boy, some back-to-back flopvilles for him.
Yeah, actually, he's on Speed, Twister, Speed 2, The Haunting, and Lara Croft Tomb Raider, The Cradle of Life. Those are his big movies.
Oh, Cradle of Life.
The second one.
That one's not good.
Yeah. His biggest hit was Twister, actually. $241 million.
I like Twister a lot.
It's fine.
Oh my god. No, it's not fine. Your attitude.
No, I watched it a lot as a kid, and I loved it as a kid, but I rewatched it as an adult, and I was like, man, this drags.
Oh, it does. Yeah, it's way too long.
Okay, so I think we're going to wrap up the discussion. So do you want to segue into your game for this film?
I do. So we've touched on it a little bit. So I'm not going to ask you to do an updated version of this film. I don't care about that. What I'm more interested in, so this film is incredibly 90s, like late 90s in its casting. So I'm going to challenge you to update the casting of this movie so that it is oh so 2019. So
I don't have a lot to think about on this, but my biggest one was like, okay, who's going to be Evelyn?
Okay.
And do you know who I think it should be?
Who is a huge bitch? Okay, wait. Before you tell me, did you go age appropriate or did you go younger? Because like you can't say Emma Roberts or something like that.
No. Mine is age appropriate, but I do have a younger option though. But I don't know if it would work. We'll see. So, my age appropriate one is Lena Headey.
Oh my god! Yes, that's fantastic. I was hoping you would bring out a good one, and I know I didn't give you a lot of time to prep for this, but that is good.
Yeah, no, I was like, okay, I need someone who's like middle-aged-ish, because I feel like though Famke Janssen was in her 30s when she made this movie.
Yeah, she might actually be younger than we think, but they can style her in such a way that she could be younger or older.
You know what? She was born in 1964, so she was probably 34 when they filmed this.
Okay.
Yeah. But for younger,
yes.
I don't think this is as good of a pick. I don't know if it would work, but I was thinking, wouldn't it be nice if Megan Fox made a return to the horror genre?
Ooh, yes.
I worry that her voice is not, like, it doesn't have a deep enough register.
Wait, are you going to do your Lindsay Lohan impersonation again?
No. Guys. Wait. Having a birthday party at Hill House. Wait, no. Haunted Hill.
I love that Vannacutt Institute.
Well, we'd have to make it a house again, though. We have to make it a mansion. Although, in hindsight, probably good that they did it this way, because if it was just another haunted house, it would be another thing that just linked to the haunting.
That is true, yeah.
So, I didn't cast anyone else. I was just really focused on Lena Headey.
Okay, that's fair. So, I gave a stab at this, and I ended up saying some of the picks are not so 2019, but I went with the high concept of saying, you know what? I don't like the fact that there's only one black person in this. And I feel like if it was remade nowadays, they would have a little bit more of an eye for diversity. Mm-hmm. So I recast this entire film as a black horror film.
Okay.
So here are your picks. I've got two options because I found it really difficult to do the Evelyn and Price roles. So I've got two picks for each of those. One pick for all the others. So you swap Catan for Donald Glover.
Okay, that makes sense.
Okay. You swap Ali Larter for Logan Browning.
Ooh, okay, into it. I have a second choice for her.
Okay. Do you want to say it now or do you want to wait?
I'll wait.
Okay. You swap Diggs for Anthony Mackie.
Okay. I'm not... Well, actually, he's good in... Synchronic kind of turned me on to him. I haven't loved him. I mean, I've only seen him in the Marvel movies. I think he's like not... But yeah, okay, cool. I'll go with it.
Well, to be honest, I was like, who's like really attractive, but not going to stand out from some of the more ostentatious performances? And I was like, Anthony Mackie.
That makes sense.
Charming.
So he's bland protagonist. There you go.
A little bit. Not to say that I don't like him, just to clarify. I just think, like the role of Eddie does not demand much apart from looking good and acting the hero.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, so Bridget, I would swap out for Gabrielle Union.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Holy fuck. I'm into that.
She was the first one when I was like, who would I do this? Because originally I was like, okay, I'll just do the usual swap out for generic white people. And then I was like, well, maybe I'll do one other person as a person of color. And then I was like, Gabrielle Union would fucking slay.
No, because we've seen him Bring It On, or the very underrated and underseen film Deliver Us from Eva with LL Cool J. She can play a good bitch.
She can, yes, yeah. And to be honest, I would just like to see more Gabrielle Union on fucking screens.
No, absolutely.
Like, where is she? How come people aren't casting her and stuff?
She had a show, I think, called like Being Mary Jane or something.
Yes, and it did run for, I think, 4 seasons. So.
Okay, there you go.
Okay, so now we're up to the main event. So I'm going to swap Famke for... I've got one age-appropriate pick and one that's too old, but I love her. So, first one is Taraji P. Henson.
Oh. Okay, hear me out.
Okay.
I would switch Taraji and Gabrielle. Make Gabrielle Evelyn and make Taraji the Bridget Wilson character.
Don't you think it's too old young, though?
Maybe? I don't know. I don't think so. But whatever. What's your second pick?
Okay, my second pick, which is my preference, would be Angela Bassett.
Okay.
Because think back to Coven. She can do...
No, I know.
Fierce, funny, and she would be like really physical in the role.
I'm going to get right to cross the coals for this. I think
if
Angela
Bassett...
you
don't like Angela Bassett.
No,
I'm about to
I like her, but I always see Angela Bassett play Angela Bassett. She's always says lines the same. I mean, she's really good at emoting, but like I feel like I never see anything different. It's always like the same thing. I watch 911, I watch Coven, I watch whatever other. I need to see how Stella got her groove back. I've never seen that.
Okay, so this role would be too much of the same thing for you.
That's what again, I say that, but like I have no problem with everyone else doing it, but like but my thing is like I don't know. I'm more into Taraji or Gabrielle playing that role than I am Angela Bassett. I like Angela Bassett, but I feel like she's always doing the exact same thing.
That is fair. I will concede that is a fair point. Okay. So the Rush role, or the Vincent Price role, I had a lot of trouble with this because I tried a...
Do not say Terrence Howard.
I did not. No.
Okay.
I did consider him for a hot moment, but then I was like, no, I don't think
like
that's
him.
appropriate. To be honest, okay, so here's the bad thing. When I started to do like notable black actors or like middle-aged black actors or funny black actors, it was a lot of people who have been canceled.
Oh.
It's like Kevin Hart, no. Like Bill Cosby, no. Like there's just a bunch of people where we as a society have said, sorry, no to you, sir.
Yeah.
Okay, so I came up with... I didn't really love either of my choices. To be honest, if I had not done the reversal of casting, I was going to say Nick Cage.
Oh my god.
Can you imagine?
Yeah.
It would have been terrible. He would have distracted from everybody else like
Absolutely.
he does in everything else. But, okay, so my unorthodox choice is Will Smith.
Okay.
Just because I think this would be a very off-brand role for him. Because he could do the charming, but he can also do over-the-top, and he's never really been murderous.
So, like Angela Bassett, yeah, I'm more into that casting choice, but I'm like, every time I see Will Smith, he's just doing Will Smith. Like, I haven't seen Will Smith, like, do a really good job. It's not just playing Will Smith.
Well, he's been phoning it in for Scientology money for quite a number of years.
Yeah.
Okay, the other choice was Wesley Snipes, who was kind of like Black Nick Cage, and that he might have also been too distracting.
But apparently he's hilarious in Dolomite Is My Name, the movie that maybe is already out by the time this drops, but
yes,
so
it will be.
I would buy into that. But that made me think, though, what about Jada Pinkett Smith for Evelyn?
I did think of her, too! But then I was like, no, I'm not just going to keep repeating, like, because when I picked Logan Browning, I was like, the perfection, Logan Browning. And then I was like, Jada. Oh, we talked about her in Demon Knight. But it just feels like we often go back to the same well. So.
Right. So my backup for Sarah was Kirby Howell-Baptiste.
Wait, why do I know her?
She's in The Good Place as Chidi's, like, the Australian girl.
Yes.
She's in Veronica Mars, the new season, as like the awesome club owner.
She's really good in that role in Veronica Mars.
Yes, and she's also in my favorite show now, Why Women Kill, on CBS All Access, the new Mark Cherry show.
Are you sure that you're not getting paid by them to continue playing
She's in a threesome relationship with she's in a threesome with Alexander Daddario and Dan from Veep.
See, I thought you were going to say with Lucy Liu, and I would have been a lot more interested.
No. Her timeline's in present day. Lucy Liu's in the 80s with the AIDS crisis.
Oh my god. Switch Famke for Lucy Liu.
Ooh, I love it. Oh, I love
it. Let's just remake this film with all women and just have them all be bitches.
Oh, I'm totally there.
It's like Bitches Who Kill. No, wait. Is that offensive? Don't at me.
No. And it's like we're saying cunts who kill.
Oh my god.
See, I just went there. It's fine.
It's the direct-to-video version.
Yeah. That's the porn version.
Right, yeah. The house has a killer vagina.
Okay. So just imagine the door is like a gaping vagina.
Yeah, gaping. I've seen that horror movie too.
Do vaginas gape? I don't know. Anyway, so I think that'll wrap up our discussion on House on Haunted Hill for its 20th anniversary. Everyone be sure to celebrate that next Tuesday. Before we announce what we're covering next week. So I mentioned last week that I was going to be doing some kind of bar thing, like podcast meetup in Austin, and I'm still doing that, and I have a little bit more detail. So yeah, if you're an Austinite, on this Friday, October 25th at Nomad Bar, that's Nomad with a K, there's an Austin horror podcast meetup / showcase of shorts. Podcast meetup / showcase of sorts. But basically, it's like a bunch of horror podcasters local to Austin will be showcasing parts of their show on stage. There's going to be drinks, there's a costume contest, and they're basically doing like a podcast goes up for like, I want to say like 15 minutes and does like a bit, and then they do like 4 to 5 karaoke songs in between. But hear this out though. I was told, oh yeah, it's going to be a lot of alternative and underground music, and I was like, ooh,
I'm not have to pass on that.
Not for me. I emailed the guy back and I was like, hey, so my karaoke choices are pop princesses, show tunes, oldies, Cher. And he replied with, oh, well, we have some Hedwig. And I was like, God damn it, I hate Hedwig.
I mean, it's a little bit more on brand, but yeah, not great for you.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm not doing that. And obviously I won't have Joe with me. but they might be mashing me up with another female podcast. I don't know. I'm still working out the details of what my presentation is going to be. I initially said, I'll do like one definitive queer horror film from each decade, like starting in the 70s. But then I was like, ooh, what if I did like most controversial queer readings that we've done on the show before? Or like in the articles that people like get really pissed off about. Because I'm sure I'm going to be talking in front of a bar full of straight people, which is going to be great.
Probably. Just stir the pot a little.
But yeah, so that's this Friday, October 25th at Nomad Bar. It starts at 8, but I'm definitely going on after 9. I just don't know the full time, but it goes till 2 a.m. So, I mean, I don't know. If you want to know, message me or something. And you can message me by reaching out to me on Twitter at Traced Thurman.
And I will not be there, but you can still message me on Twitter at BStoleMyRemote. That's the letter B.
And if you're tweeting about the podcast, please be sure to use the hashtag HorrorQueers in your tweets, or you can email us at horrorqueers@gmail.com, or check out our Facebook group. That's right, our group for all of our listeners to connect on. Seek that out. You do have to get approved by us, but we're approving lots of people these days, so just go on in.
We're equal opportunity.
Yeah.
We let most everybody in, unless you're like a weirdo.
Well, the trick is if you're a friend with someone who's in the group, you get automatically approved. So that's the trick. I know.
You just gave that away, didn't you?
Whoops. If you have 2 seconds, please head on over to iTunes and leave us a rating. We love those. Or leave us a review. We love getting good reviews. It warms our little hearts. And if you want even more content, please visit our Patreon page at patreon.com/horrorqueers, where you can sign up for exclusive bonus content covering recent horror films like Zombieland Double Tap, which I think will drop. If it hasn't dropped already, it's dropping very soon.
Yes.
So, Joe, what are we covering next week for Halloween?
Yeah, so our Halloween pick is a little unorthodox, but I did want to preface this by saying that you'll actually get 2 episodes on the main feed next week, because we're going to drop the live recording that we did back at Fantastic Fest on Nightmare on Elm Street 2 on the film's 34th anniversary. So keep an eye out for that near the end of the week, but on the regular main release date, we're going to be talking about Phantom of the Paradise, which is very exciting. It means nothing to you.
I've never seen it before. This is a De Palma film, and it's a rock opera horror musical thing.
It is, yeah. So this is actually our second rock opera that we're going to be covering after Stage Fright, and I'm intrigued to see if you like this one a little bit more, Trace.
Yes, and we have a guest joining us for that episode who is extremely passionate about this movie. When we sent it to this person, they emailed me back within like a minute and went, Phantom of the Paradise.
Yeah, and I think that one's celebrating a milestone. It might be 45 years.
Yes, that is the 45th. So we got a 45th and a 34th anniversary next week.
Yeah. So that is that will mark the end of our 2-month camp spectacular as well. So come back next week for Phantom of the Paradise.
And then we'll start November with just regular horror again.
I mean, it's technically all been regular horror.
No, I know.
It's not themed after that.
Although we do have a campy movie in November. But anyway, I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. On this note, we can cross out House on Haunted Hill.
Yes, and cross out Horror Queers.
Disgusting Podcast Network, home of creepy, disturbing and terrifying creepypastas, SCP archives, weekly full cast storytelling, horror queers, genre commentary from an LGBTQ perspective, and the Boo Crew for horror-centric interviews. Listen free wherever you stream audio and at bloodydisgusting.com/podcasts.
Get in, losers. This is the Lady Killers, a Feminine Rage podcast. I'm Jen.
I'm Sammy.
I'm Rocco.
And I'm May. Our podcast is a tribute to the female-identifying killers in horror and more.
Each episode will feature us, your Supreme Court of female murderers, discussing our favorite lady killers, from your Julias and Jennifers to your Carries and Christines.
We'll tell her story, decide if it's good for her horror, and answer the most important question of all. Would we die for her?
Join us on Thursdays as we pull on our sweaters, snatch our ice picks, sharpen our scissors, and honor the lady killers who live on the silver screen.
No boys were harmed in the making of this podcast.
Yet.
It was late in the afternoon when the professor and I took our way towards the east, whence I knew Jonathan was coming.
Jonathan Harker has asked me to note this, as he says he is hardly equal to the task, and he wants an exact record kept.
Dear Madam Mina, I have read your husband's so wonderful diary. Strange and terrible as it is true. I will pledge my life on it.
God preserve my sanity, for to this I am reduced. Safety and the assurance of safety are things of the past.
I am in hopes that I shall see more of you at Castle Dracula.
Listen to Regarding Dracula wherever you listen to podcasts, or find us online at bloody.fm.